Grief is a pure and unforgiving form of change. It is the body's way of processing an incomprehensible loss and the fact that your life will never quite be the same. It is the strongest emotion that a person can conjure, a harrowing feeling that pulls at our heartstrings and takes over our minds. This heavy feeling washes over you and pulls you into the deepest part of sorrow and expects you to swim back to the surface, only for another wave to drag you back into the dark. Whether you grieve over a family member, a friend, a pet, it is a feeling that not only breaks you but rebuilds you over time. It reminds us that there will always remain a space in life for the memories of what we've lost. During March and April of 2022, I was grieving 4 different situations. 2 of them were sudden, 1 of them was gradual, and the other I knew was coming. My heart broke and I cried until my lungs hurt and my eyes ran out of water. And for the longest time I looked for some way to alleviate the way that I felt. That is when I decided to try and use nature as a form of healing. This is called ecotherapy.
Okay, so I'm Malachy Dunn, and I'm the founder, which is always a word I find difficult, Lifetime Therapy. If there was one word I would use to describe grief, it's deprivation. Deprivation is the feeling we experience when we are deprived of something that we aren't expecting to be deprived of or don't want to be deprived of, something that we're strongly connected to. The important thing to realise about grief is it's not rational. And what I mean by it's not rational, it's not attached to our cognition. It's an emotion, and therefore it just is. It doesn't think. It just experiences deprivation, and when it experiences it, it's a sense of, maybe the word might be ripness, something really taken away from us, and that's really hard, and it hurts, and we feel sad, and we don't like it, and often in that whole mixture of feelings we'll feel angry too. The loss is intense because the feelings don't know what they've lost, they just know that they've lost something. Maybe at Christmas time or birthdays, or it could be any time that we can go back into that grief, yeah. And that's okay, that's what humans do, you know. And so this linear model that ends with this word closure doesn't really work for me. Just doesn't. How could it work, given that my love for the things that I've lost will go when I go, you know? So that might be when the closure, that's when my grief will end, when I end. So what is ecotherapy? That's too big a question really, but to answer it simply, it's any sort of healing process that happens either on our own or with others in the environment. And what I mean by the environment, I mean in connection with natural processes such as the growth of plants or water or anything in the outdoors. Yeah. So it can be as simple as tending to plants on your own windowsill, observing the miraculous nature of growth, and or walking, talking, swimming together, or any sort of time outdoors with other people. It can involve conversations about painful issues, or it can just involve a connection that happens anyway. One of my favourite bits of ecotherapy is to notice that buds arrive in the autumn and not the spring, and that the regeneration happens long before we imagine it does, and that sends me into winter with a sense of expectation that things will be different, because winter was a dangerous time for humans. You know, many of us died, many of us would suffer in the winter time, and so seeing those buds and seeing that nature's ready to go, I don't like the word hope, but it can give me an expectation that things can be better. I think ecotherapy or connection with nature is really useful in beginning to process grief, in the sense that the relentless progress, the seasonality that it just continues despite our efforts, is really useful to provide consolation. We're sitting here next to some oak seedlings, and in 200 years' time, if we weren't here, this would be an oak forest. The oak trees would go down to the water's edge. Some of them would die without human interference. They would rot and provide environments for lots more life forms. It's only when we get involved, really, that the cycle of everything gets messed up. When we're next to running water, how the negative ions in the air, you know that cold feeling you get in your nostrils, and that's really healing, therapeutic, if that's I use those words interchangeably. Cold water is really good if we can invite the anxiety in by getting into cold water and realise that our anxiety will give us loads of pessimistic messages. Anxiety is a pessimist, so if we can have that conversation with it by saying, yeah, I realise you're telling me this is dangerous, this is not an environment that I want to be in, but I'm going to choose to do it. We increase our resilience, not just with anxiety, but with other difficult emotions as well. We learn how to disobey our difficult emotions.
Grief is a massive part of life, for there is no love without loss. However, when the world feels broken and as if time has stopped, allow Mother Nature to nurture you back to health, for you are not alone.